Hello, good afternoon to everyone. I think I'm audible. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And thank you for the host for inviting me to speak today, the Google Developers Group and the Women Tech Makers for the celebration of the International Women's Day. And I'm Louise and Leal, as they introduced me. You can call me Lois. Some people call me Lois. And I'm from the Philippine Space Agency. I'm working there in the AI and computer vision projects. And I also volunteer in GDG Cloud Manila. So there's a wave there to the GDG family. And yes, I will be talking today about my experience in passing the TensorFlow Developer Exam. After I pass this exam, there are people asking me that they want to take it too, and what might be my advice, what are the hacks, you could call it like that, in passing this exam. And I want to approach this talk as that thing, like some people asking me, and I will be giving out general advice how to pass this TensorFlow Developer Exam. And it's an exam by Google, of course. So before we dive into the exam itself, I think it would be great if we know what is TensorFlow first, to just have some background in the general audience. So what is TensorFlow? TensorFlow, it's an open source platform for machine learning. So other developers can also contribute to it. Uh, if you heard of AI, or if you're a machine learning enthusiast, or you do machine learning or deep learning in your career, it's a tool that you must have in your toolkit, right? So it's for researchers to push the state of the art in ML, and it's not just for research; it's also for industry professionals to easily build and deploy ML-powered applications. So let's dive in. Before I do something, I tend to establish first the why. And I think taking this exam is very important to establish what is your why in taking the exam. So these are the reasons in the website. You can see the benefits. You will be learning something new, increasing your proficiency in machine learning. And that's pretty important if you're a machine learning engineer or researcher, etc. And of course, you will be receiving community recognition because you will have certificates in that. And you will be added to this called TensorFlow Developer Community Network, something like that, that you will see later on. And of course, you can showcase your skills, saying that, yes, I passed this kind of exam that tests me on different things. So the next would be the reasons of other people that I've seen across the internet. So I've seen people, their whys and what. So one reason to take it would be there's a community out there. There's a lot of people using it, and it's a very incredible technology for AI. So this chart that I'm showing, it's the Stack Overflow trends, and you can see it's updated till 2021. And TensorFlow is compared to PyTorch and scikit-learn. And you can see that this is the percentage of Stack Overflow questions. So you can see the margin, the TensorFlow is leading here. And for hiring, for people listing in their companies that they want people to have this kind of tool, to know this tool, you can see here in May 2020 of Hacker News hiring trends, that is also compared to PyTorch and Keras, which are some of the tools also used in AI. And we can see here that it's also leading by that margin. So it's pretty important tool to have in your toolkit. So that's for the industry. Now for the research, you can see that the number of papers from arXiv mentioning the given framework. When it comes to research industry, though, there's kind of competition between TensorFlow and PyTorch, but nonetheless, we can see that TensorFlow is there competing at the top. So it's an important toolkit if you're doing research on AI. And these are the reasons I found people using in the web and not. And the next would be my reasons taking it. So what is my reason for taking the TensorFlow Developer Exam? And like this, like the theme of today's celebration, Courage to Create, I chose to take it as a challenge because it challenges me. I love the thrill. I love that kind of thing. And it's also a motivation to actively study TensorFlow. Just to share, I actually made this 4-month self-study in AI, and I picked this TensorFlow Developer Exam as one of my checkpoints in studying. And I said actively study because, of course, you can do it possibly. So I chose it to study actively. And of course, this is the thing that I'm talking about a while ago, the TensorFlow Certificate Network. So if you pass it, you will be included in that network and the TensorFlow developer site. And it's good for people looking for developers, for example, within the region here in the Philippines, to see if they're looking, they want to hire people who's knowledgeable at TensorFlow, they can find you there. So that's also a benefit. And I find it thrilling because, we have the step one reaching the Mount Everest, the first person to go to this thing. So this one is like, I want to be like the 6th person to pass this exam in the Philippines. And if I'm not mistaken, and there are only 7 people in the Philippines who passed the exam now. Maybe it's updated a day ago, but when I captured it, there's only 7 people. And I think that would be thrilling if you would be like, want to be the 8th person or the 9th person joining this thing. So we have the why, right? We have it settled. Now let's go to the what. What is this TensorFlow Developer Exam exactly? Because we've been talking about it, right? So the TensorFlow Developer Exam, it's a level 1. That should be emphasized, I think. It's a level 1 certificate exam that tests a developer's foundational knowledge of integrating machine learning into tools and applications. So I think the level 1 should be emphasized, but it should not be underestimated nor overestimated. That's why we're here to see what the exam is all about, to just set our expectations and to avoid that kind of thing. That over preparation is good, I think, but under preparation is something that we don't want to do. Just knowing that it's just a level 1 exam, so we don't want that. And it requires an understanding of building TensorFlow models using computer vision, convolutional neural networks or CNNs, NLP, and real-world data and strategies. So when I took the exam, or before I take the exam, I set my expectations, of course. And if I will be putting it in a nutshell in one sentence, I would say that it's a hands-on type, which can be taken online and needed to be finished in a 5-hour time limit. So that feels thrilling, and it's kind of compressed, right? So let's elaborate about it. So it's a hands-on and online exam. Therefore, you will be asked to have your environment ready. And don't fret, there's a detailed instruction for setting up the environment for the exam. So I have this in the screen. You can scan the QR code to view the document. So this is the title page of the document, and follow this document very closely. Double check, especially the versions of the dependencies needed to be installed, and breathe, right? I actually can count how many times I have done that, especially the week that I will be taking the exam. So We don't want any uh, surprise stuff to happen. So these are the major platforms that I use. I use the Google Colab and PyCharm 2020.2. The use of Google's Colab is not mandatory, but recommended to take advantage of the free GPU that they're offering. This information is also in the guide, so it's not really leaking anything. This also became a need for me because my old laptop hangs and takes some time in training neural nets. On the other hand, the specific version to be used for the PyCharm IDE is very important. Make sure it's 2020.2 as of this writing, and by following the instructions closely in that document, I didn't experience any problems or errors while taking the exam. That's, I think, one of the things that overwhelms me. Like, what if I encounter some problems? But don't worry if you follow it very closely. And actually, there's a document when you're taking the exam. They'll give you a document of the possible problems and the possible solutions for it. So it's pretty nice, that case. So it's hands-on, it's an online exam, and you can only have 5 hours for 5 problems. And of course, there's no extensions. So the problems, along with the other information, which is enough to let you know what you have to do, will be given in the exam environment to be installed in PyCharm. So it's going to be installed there. And there are 2 cases by which the exam can end. First, if you still have time left, you can press that end exam button as seen in the screen. And if you have no time left, it will be automatically end. It will automatically end, and your progress will be considered, all of it. So in my case, I ended it with some minutes left because I kind of took my time in perfecting, you can say that, this exam, because there's one number, I think it's the 4th one. I want to perfect it, but with regards to the first 4 problems, I finished it like 1.5 hours, and you'll know your you'll know if your model is good enough. In my case, I'm saying perfecting because you can see the score, like 5/5, 4/5, like that. So yes, you will know how good your model is so far. You will be passing that model. And like any Google exam, you also have to pay for it, and you'll need to register. So the exam costs $100, and that's around 4,800 something when I took it. So you can pay for it and take the exam later, but beware of the expiration of the access upon payment. You have 6 months from the date of purchasing the exam before the purchase expires. So you can see here, I'm flashing some part of the TensorFlow website. So you can see this, the details when you click the begin the exam. So don't worry, clicking that button wouldn't start the clock ticking for your exam, despite it named as begin the exam, because you actually haven't paid yet, right? So, oops. So if you click it, you will see this thing. So you can see the preparation of taking the exam. It will lead you to some files that will help you. Of course, you need to ready your ID. Here you can pay for it. And in my case of paying for it, I used debit cards, but the first debit cards that I used wasn't really accepted. So I used some other digital debit cards, and they accepted it. Oh, if you're having problems in paying the exam, they offer also TensorFlow Education Stipend. And there are 2 choices by which you can get their stipend. The first one would be it covers only the exam stipend. The exam stipend covers only 50%, so that would be $50, like 2,500 something. And the second one is the exam stipend plus the full access to deep learning AI TensorFlow Developer Professional Certificate. So just a take note that you should apply for this stipend early because it will take 4 to 6 weeks to get the results of your stipend application. And yes, results, because it will depend on your application if you will be given the stipend or not. And in the application form, you will answer various questions, like it's an essay type where they will base their decision. And if you made it, if you acquired the stipend, you must also take note of the expiration of the access. So for more details, just scan the QR code here, as flash in the screen. And if the exam cost won't be a problem, but taking the course might be, there's another way. That's through Coursera, through their financial aid feature. And this financial aid takes 15 days to be approved. And after being approved, it's valid for 180 days. So that's 6 months after your application was approved. So yeah, there we have it. What is it and the things about it. And the next that I want to discuss about is, of course, the preparation. How did I prepare that I made it this far? The next screen would be kind of chaotic picture. This is like my calendar there. I started preparing for it in November 27, and then I took the test by December 31. So that's pretty holidays season. And of course, December 31 would be New Year's Eve. So that's pretty fun and exciting at the same time that I'm taking the test December 31 and New Year's Eve. So yeah, and these are the main resources that I used. So the best way to know the coverage of the exam is through the dedicated website for it. There are many things in there. So this is one of the things that sits on top of it all, the Candidate Handbook. So I can emphasize that further. I have read this many times while starting, preparing, and even right before the exam. This is like the battle plan being handed to you because it contains the skills checklist that we will see later. So this candidate handbook, just a note, this candidate handbook along with the other materials is being updated from time to time. So you can see here it's updated last October 26th. So just make sure you're reading the latest version that you can find in your website. And if you're fond of reading blogs, just make sure that to see what version they are using because might be that it's not updated. So this is the skills checklist. You'll find it in the document. So the first one would be the TensorFlow developer skills. So you need to have or you need to know Python, how to resolve Python issues, compile. Those are pretty general stuff. And how to find information in the TensorFlow APIs, and debug, investigate, and solve error messages. So it's pretty general. And for the ML part is like how to create models where the model size is reasonable for the problem being solved. You don't want to use 100 layers in the exams. That's a no-no. So that's one skill that this exam test. So you need to know how to save the ML models and check the model file size and understand the compatibility discrepancies between the different versions of TensorFlow. Because TensorFlow 1, if you see, TensorFlow 1 is very different from TensorFlow 2, and this exam is on TensorFlow 2. So you don't want to know TensorFlow 1 and take this exam just to find out that it actually requires TensorFlow 2. And this one is pretty general in the machine learning part. So you need to use, of course, TensorFlow 2.x and build, compile the sequential models. You have to know how to build and train models for binary classification, multi-class classification, how the plots that you will be using, uh, what else? The use of pre-trained models or transfer learning. and ensure that the inputs to a model are in the correct shape. So those are pretty general for the machine learning part. And it has some, in this one, you have to understand the batch loading as an example, the callbacks. I think that's pretty useful in the exam, and the different data sets from different sources. It might be given to you, or it might be built in from Keras. And the data sets, you need to know how to handle different formats. You can have JSON and CSV. And sometimes while preparing, it's just a preparation that I encountered an image stored in CSV file. So that's kind of prickish, right? So the next parts would be narrowed down to some applications. Here is like in computer vision, it tests on the image classification part. So you need to know how to build models using Con2D and the pooling layers, and you have to know how to train and build these models, and of course the sizes, that's important, and the image augmentation to prevent overfitting, and this image data generator that you can find in TensorFlow. And then you can also have another application from NLP. So this one example, just how to prepare. You need to know how to prepare your data to feed on these models. And we have binary categorization, multi-class categorization. You will also build models using LSTMs, RNN, GRU, and CNNs. And you should also know how to train LSTMs, like for the generation application. So you also have time series, like the RNN, CNNs, and of course the error, the mean average error, and how can it be used to evaluate accuracy. So these things that I'm talking about, the skills checklist, you can find it on the document. And I actually pretty use this very well. I printed it out. I put some notes in it, what might be the resources that I will be using in it, because I want to check that every bullet in it, I know how to do them, and I'm confident to do them. So I think that's pretty important. And if the candidate handbook is your battle plan, this is your battle plan details. So this is the second resource that I use. This is the Deep Learning AI's TensorFlow Developer Professional Certificate from Coursera. So trust me, if you have completed this, if you have coded this, have religiously studied this, or really know this, you will certainly pass the exam. And this is written in the notes in that course. It said that this program can help you prepare for this exam. So I keep repeating this really because I want to stress that if you don't have much time and you know the concepts, the theoretical concepts of deep learning for simple regression, computer vision, NLP, and time series, and you just need to learn TensorFlow, how to do that, how to do those things, just take this resource. And of course, the platform, to complete the holy grail of the exam, you must know PyCharm. So we do not want to take the exam and be surprised by the environment that will be used. So that would be like catastrophe. So the question is, do you need to be a pro using PyCharm? Certainly not needed, but if you want, there's no one stopping you. The thing is that I actually haven't used PyCharm before the exam. So I just listed the things that I needed to know. I listed setting up the environment in PyCharm, knowing how to run a program in it, and making myself really comfortable. So this part from JetBrains PyCharm tutorials, I find this really helpful. So if for installation, if you're an Ubuntu users, if you're an Ubuntu user, you can easily install it. So I will just run through the supporting materials. So you can also get this thing, the hands-on machine learning with scikit-learn Keras and TensorFlow second edition by Aurelian Garon. It's a pretty pretty awesome book. If you're gonna use one book to learn from classical machine learning to neural nets, it's pretty exciting book. So you can have this as your supporting materials. The second would be the MIT Deep Learning 6.S191. You can see it in their website. These are the example topics that is covered in there. And of course, been there, done that. Learning and listening to people who have done the exam is such a great thing to do. And these are some blog articles that I found really helpful. So you can have Daniel Burke's Medium post, you can have Viren's Medium post, and the other one. So the thing is that this is one thing that will increase much of your chances. Practice, practice, practice. Repeat. I can't count how many times I've practiced coding myself the exercises that you can find in the TensorFlow Professional Certificate. And yeah, just practice, practice. It's not necessary to do it the way I did because that's kind of exhaustive. But when I was doing the exam, I thanked myself for preparing that way. And because of that, it worked. That's why I'm speaking in front of you, right? And lo and behold, I passed the exam. And right after you click that end exam button, you will receive the it's not the certificate. You will receive the email telling you if you passed the exam or not. So this is a snapshot of the email that I received. And after less than 2 weeks, I received my certificate and I saw my profile being added to the TensorFlow certificate network. So this is an interesting place again where people looking for TensorFlow developers can find you. And yeah, so this will be the code that I want to leave. Learning just never stops. Passing the exam before New Year's Eve, like December 31, added up to my excitement and the celebration going around. It's a good year ender. And the day after that, I started a new chapter for 2021. And again, as of this writing, I'm working on AI computer vision projects. It helped me a lot. And yeah, learning just never stops. Thank you.